The 1936 Olympics are best remembered for Adolf Hitler's failed attempt to use them as an opportunity to promote his government. The official Nazi Party paper wrote in the strongest terms that Jews should not be allowed to participate in the Games. Threatened with a boycott of the Games by other nations, Hitler appeared to allow athletes from other ethnicities from other countries to participate. But German Jewish athletes were prevented from taking part. The Jewish athletes from other countries, such as the U.S., seem to have been sidelined in order not to offend the Nazi regime. On August 1, 1936, the Games started. Hundreds of athletes on opening day marched into the stadium, team by team in alphabetical order, inaugurating a new Olympic ritual. A lone runner arrives to the stadium while carrying a torch carried by a relay from the site of the ancient Games in Olympia, Greece. 49 athletic teams from around the world competed in the Berlin Olympics, more than in any previous Olympics. Germany fielded in the largest teams with 348 athletes. The U.S. team was the second largest, with 312 members, including 18 African Americans. The Soviet Union did not participate in the Berlin Games. Louis Zamperini qualified for the Games at the age of 19. He was the Olympic trials champion at the 5,000-meter dash when he tied with the world record holder Don Lash. Zamperini went on to finish 8th in the 36 Olympics with the 5,000-meter in 14:46.8 minutes with a sub-60-second final lap. He was 19 at the time, still the youngest U.S. runner ever to compete in the distance in the Olympics. This caught the attention of Adolf Hitler, who shook Zamperini's hand from his box and said, "Ah, you're the boy with the fast finish." Despite winning congratulations from the German Führer, Zamperini wasn't above getting into trouble during the Olympics. Before leaving Berlin, he nearly was shot before trying to swipe a Nazi flag from the Reich Chancellery as a souvenir. His running career started on the track in high school when he set his ratified U.S. high school mile record of 4:21.2 on May 19, 1934 in Los Angeles. This high school mile record lasted 19 years. In 1938, Zamperini also set the National Collegiate mile record, 408.3, which held for 15 years, earning him the nickname Torrance Tornado. In the beginning, he had a troubled childhood and was smoking at the age of 5 and drinking at 8. He seemed headed for a life of delinquency when his older brother, Pete, a champion miler, encouraged him to start running. After the Olympics, Zamperini enlisted for the American Army Air Forces on May 27, 1943. He and the rest of his crew were on a search and rescue mission 800 miles from Hawaii when the aircraft developed mechanical problems and dived nose first into the ocean. He was one of the 3 crew members to survive the crash. They climbed into a rubber life raft that had few supplies. After spending 47 days out at sea, he and his other crew member were captured by the Japanese. Louis spent 2 years in prison war camp till America defeated the Japanese. After years of malnourishment and torture, Zamperini was unable to resume his career as a runner. He later became dependent on alcohol to forget his nightmares and flashbacks. He spent many years working in real estate and coaching track in California. He also founded a camp for troubled youth. He became a motivational speaker, often addressing military groups for his imprisonment. Before the 1998 Winter Olympics in Nagano, Japan, Zamperini carried the Olympic torch, cheered at every step by the new generation of the Japanese. Jesse Owens, also known as the Buckeye Bullet, was an American track and field athlete who won 4 gold medals and broke 2 world records in the 1936 Olympics in Berlin. His long jump world record stood for 25 years. His athletic career began in high school when he won 3 track and field events in the 1933 National Interscholastic Championships. In all, the United States won 11 gold medals. 6 of them went to black athletes. Owens was easily the most dominant athlete to compete. After Owens won the 100-meter event, a furious Hitler stormed out of the stadium. While Owens helped the U.S. triumph at the Games, his return home was not met with the kind of fanfare one might expect. President Franklin D. Roosevelt failed to meet with Owens and congratulate him, as was typical for champions. The athlete wouldn't be properly recognized until 1976, when President Gerald Ford awarded him the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Following the 36 games, Owens retired from athletics and started to earn money for his physical talents. He raced against cars and horses. Owens eventually found his calling in public relations and marketing, setting up a business for himself in Chicago, and traveling frequently around the country to speak at conventions and other business gatherings. Lutz Long, the German long jumper, tall, blue-eyed, and blonde, was the personification of ideal Nazi ideology. Although Owens arrived for long jump qualifying in the morning of August 4th as a world record holder, he was soon put on his guard at the sight of Long taking huge leaps in practice. On the face of it, there was an ideal opportunity for Nazis to see their theories of racial supremacy put into practice. The qualifying distance was 7.15 meters, hardly a stretch for a man who had jumped 8.13 meters, but having won his early morning 200-meter qualifying round and the Olympic record of 21.1 seconds, Owens failed to see the judges raising their flags to indicate the start of the competition. Still in his tracksuit, he took a practice run down the approach and into the pit, only to see officials indicating that this had been counted as the first of his 3 efforts. Discomfited, he fouled on his next attempt, leaving him with only one remaining jump to ensure that he reached the final later in the day. At that point, according to Owens, Lutz Long came up to him and introduced himself in English. "Something must be eating at you," said Long. You should be able to qualify with your eyes closed." Then later, Long suggested that as the qualifying distance was only 7.15 meters, Owens should shift his mark back to ensure that he took off well short from the board and remained clear of any possibility of fouling again. Owens complied, retracting the initial marker from his run-up by a foot and a half before taking off uninhibitedly to qualify with just half a centimeter to spare. When the final was held later in the afternoon, Owens continued to impress the audience and beat Long at the long jump. After the Olympics, Long continued to compete in track meets, achieving his personal best of 7.90 meters in the long jump in 1937. Long finished law school at the University of Leipzig and briefly practiced in Hamburg. But eventually, when the war turned against Germany, all healthy men were drafted and he became a Nazi soldier. He wrote Owens a final letter in 1942, just after the United States declared war on Germany, writing, "In 1951, Jesse Owens kept his promise and found Long's son in war-torn Germany. When the war is over, please go to Germany, find my son, and tell him about his father. Tell him about the times when war did not separate us, and tell him that things can be different between men in this world. Your brother, Lutz." Lutz Long was injured on July 10, 1943, when the Allies invaded Sicily. In a British field hospital, he died on July 13, 1943. He was only 30. The 1936 Olympics will be remembered for long-lasting friendship of 2 Olympic athletes and the story of a juvenile delinquent turning into an Olympic athlete.